The mind is fast, faster than your breath, faster than your heartbeat, faster than any movement you can make in the physical world. Before you even notice it, the mind has already created a story, a judgment, a fear, a desire, or a memory pulled from the past. It speaks in your voice so naturally that you assume it is you. And because you believe it is you, you obey it. You follow it into anxiety, into anger, into doubt, into overthinking, into comparison, into paralysis. You wake up and the mind tells you who you are. You walk outside and the mind tells you what is possible and what is not. You look at another person and the mind tells you how to judge them or yourself. And this continues from morning to night, and from night into your dreams. But the truth is simple and uncomfortable. At the same time, the mind is not your master unless you give it that role. To be stronger than the mind, the first step is not to fight it. Fighting the mind is still letting it lead the dance. If you try to silence it with force, it only becomes louder. If you try to push thoughts away, they return stronger, more persistent. The mind enjoys conflict. It feeds on attention, even negative attention. So the first action is not violence. The first action is awareness. You begin by noticing. You begin by observing. You step back just a little and you watch the mind as if you are watching clouds move across the sky. Those clouds are not you. They appear, they change shape, they disappear. But the sky remains. In the same way, thoughts appear, emotions change, sensations rise and fall. But there is something in you that remains untouched. That is the watcher. That is the observer. That is the seed of your true power. At first, this awareness will be weak. You will forget. You will be pulled into a thought and carried away for minutes, hours, sometimes even days. And then suddenly you will remember, I am thinking. A moment ago I was lost and now I see. That moment is victory. Even if it lasts only 2 seconds, it is proof that you are not just the mind. Those 2 seconds are proof that there is a space inside you that is separate from the noise. And with practice, that space grows. It becomes 5 seconds, then a minute, then longer. The mind does not disappear, but your relationship to it changes. You stop being its prisoner. You become its witness. Most people do not suffer because of reality. They suffer because of the story they tell themselves about reality. One look, one message left unread, one small failure, and the mind creates a whole narrative. I am not good enough. I will always be alone. This will never work. I am running out of time. And the body reacts as if this story is absolute truth. The heart rate increases, the muscles tighten, the breath becomes shallow. The body enters a state of war not because of what exists, but because of what is imagined. When you master awareness over thought, you begin to see this clearly. You begin to feel the difference between what is actually happening and what is being imagined about it. And in that gap, you find peace. This awareness is not passive. It is sharp, it is alive. It is present in this breath, in this moment, in the feeling of your feet on the ground, in the sound of my voice, in the silence between words. Every time you return to the present moment, you weaken the grip of unnecessary thought. The mind lives in the past and the future. It replays what cannot be changed and rehearses what may never happen. But it cannot survive long in the present moment because the present moment is real and the mind is mostly fiction. So your strength grows every time you come back to now. The challenge is that the mind is convincing. It brings evidence. It brings memories. It brings emotion. It knows your weaknesses because it has lived with you your entire life. It knows how to push the right buttons. If you try to argue with it, it will always find another argument. If you try to prove it wrong, it will find new reasons to be right. So you do not engage in debate. You observe like a warrior standing still while arrows fly past. You do not chase each arrow. You do not need to. You know they cannot touch your center unless you move toward them. In this practice, you begin to understand something important. Not every thought deserves your energy. Not every emotion deserves your reaction. Not every impulse deserves your action. Just because the mind suggests something does not mean you must follow. Just because a feeling arises does not mean you must obey. You create distance. You pause. In that pause, you reclaim power. And power is not loud. Power is quiet. Power is still. Power is rooted. With awareness, you also start to notice patterns. You begin to see the same types of thoughts appearing again and again. The same fears, the same doubts, the same stories. You see that most of them are old. They come from childhood, from past experiences, from things done to you or said to you. They are echoes. They are not fresh truth. They are not current reality. But the mind does not care about time. It only cares about survival. And sometimes it tries to keep you safe by limiting you. It says, don't try, don't risk, don't change, don't leave what is familiar. And many people confuse this voice for intuition. But intuition is calm. Fear is loud. Intuition is clear. The mind is chaotic. As your awareness sharpens, you begin to identify the difference. You begin to feel when it is the small, frightened mind speaking, and when it is the deeper, wiser part of you guiding. This is not learned from books. It is learned from silence, from stillness, from honest self-observation. It is learned every time you choose not to react immediately, every time you breathe before answering, every time you feel anger rising and decide to wait instead of exploding, every time you notice the urge to quit and decide to take one more step. These moments are training. These moments are sacred. Mastering awareness over thought does not mean you will never think negative thoughts again. It means those thoughts no longer control the direction of your life. They can appear, but they do not decide. You decide. And the way you decide is by anchoring yourself in something more stable than thought: your breath, your posture, your present experience, your inner stillness. A strong body supports a strong mind, and a disciplined practice supports strong awareness. The more you train this, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, something shifts. The space between you and your thoughts becomes so familiar that when a thought arises, you no longer panic. You no longer cling to it. You no longer try to escape it. You simply see it. And because you see it clearly, it loses its power. It is like turning on the light in a dark room. The monsters were always imaginary. They disappear when seen. In this awareness, you also discover freedom. You realize that you are not your past. You are not your fears. You are not your mistakes. You are the one who is aware of them. And what is aware cannot be defined by what it observes. This realization is not just spiritual, it is practical. It changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you choose. You become less reactive and more intentional. You become less anxious and more grounded. You stop asking, "What does my mind say?" and start asking, "What do I see clearly right now?" This is what it means to be stronger than your mind. It is not about control through force. It is about clarity through awareness. It is about standing in the center of yourself while the storm moves around you. It is about understanding that the mind is a tool, a useful servant, but a terrible master. And once you see this, truly see it, you will never give your throne away again. The body is not separate from the mind. It is the mind's mirror. Every thought you hold, every emotion you suppress, every fear you carry, every habit you repeat, all of it leaves an imprint on the body. Tension in your shoulders, tightness in your jaw, shallow breathing in your chest, weakness in your posture, restlessness in your hands. These are not random. They are the physical language of a mind that has not been trained, not been disciplined, not been guided. And if the body remains undisciplined, the mind can never truly be free. Most people try to control the mind directly. They read books, listen to talks, repeat affirmations, analyze their thoughts. But the mind is slippery. It escapes logic. It hides in emotion. It manipulates perception. So instead of beginning with the mind, you begin with something more honest, more grounded, more real. You begin with the body. The body does not lie. It does not pretend. It does not live in yesterday or tomorrow. It only knows now. Hunger happens now. Fatigue happens now. Pain happens now. Strength happens now. When you discipline the body, you anchor yourself in reality. You step out of imagination and into presence. This is where control truly begins. Disciplining the body is not about punishment. It is about respect. It is about showing yourself that you are no longer controlled by impulse. Every time you choose discomfort over ease, every time you choose structure over chaos, Every time you choose effort over laziness, something inside you shifts. The mind begins to understand a new law: I am not in charge anymore. There is something stronger here. Think about how most people live. They eat when they feel like it, not when their body truly needs it. They sleep when they are exhausted, not when rest is required. They move only when forced to, not as a daily practice. And then they wonder why their thoughts are messy, their emotions unstable, their willpower weak. There is no command over the physical self, so how can there be command over the mind? When the body is trained, it becomes a foundation, and on this foundation mental strength is built. When you wake up early, even when you do not want to, you prove something to yourself. When you hold a posture that is uncomfortable, you prove something to yourself. When you control your breath under pressure, you prove something to yourself. You begin to generate an inner authority. A voice that says, I decide, not the mood, not the moment, not the mind. I decide. Every physical discipline carries a mental lesson. When you hold still in silence, the mind will scream for distraction. When you push through physical fatigue, the mind will beg you to stop. When you slow the breath, the mind will race faster. And this is where the true training happens. Not in the movement, but in the response to the mind's resistance. Each time you do not listen to that voice, it becomes weaker. Each time you hold steady, you become stronger. This is how discipline works. It is not built in a dramatic moment. It is built in quiet rebellion against your lower self. The self that seeks comfort. The self that wants pleasure without effort. The self that avoids pain, avoids responsibility, avoids growth. When you discipline the body, you confront that self. And at first, it will not like it. It will fight. It will make excuses. It will delay. It will bargain. But if you remain steady, it will eventually bow. In this process, the body becomes your temple and your training ground. You notice what you put into it. You notice how you move it. You notice how you rest it. You begin to see that what seems small is actually enormous. The glass of water you choose instead of sugar. The walk you take instead of the screen you scroll. The straight posture you hold instead of collapsing. These are not small acts. They are declarations of control. A disciplined body supports a disciplined mind because it creates order. And the mind, when it sees order outside, begins to create order inside. The chaos starts to settle. The thoughts slow down. The emotions stabilize. Clarity increases. Confidence increases. Not the fake confidence that comes from words, but the real confidence that comes from consistency, from knowing you can rely on yourself. Many people look for motivation. They wait for inspiration to change. But discipline does not wait for motivation. Discipline is the creator of motivation. You move first, you act first, you train first, and then the mind follows. The body leads and the mind obeys. This is a reversal of how most people live, and this reversal is the beginning of power. When you strengthen the body, you also strengthen your relationship with pain. You stop running from it and start learning from it. You realize pain is not always an enemy. It is often a messenger. It tells you where you are weak. It shows you where you avoid. It reveals where growth is required. And when you stay with it, breathe through it, respect it but not fear it, something inside you opens. You realize you are capable of more than you believed. This changes the way the mind reacts to challenge. Instead of panic, it becomes curious. Instead of doubt, it becomes focused. Instead of fear, it becomes alert. The body teaches the mind resilience by example. It teaches the mind endurance. It teaches the mind patience. You start to see the direct connection between the way you hold your body and the way you hold your life. A collapsed posture creates a collapsed attitude. A weak body encourages a weak voice inside. But a strong, aligned, disciplined body sends a different message. It says, I am here, I am grounded, I can handle this. And the mind listens to that message whether you are aware of it or not. This is why training is not just physical, it is spiritual, it is psychological, it is emotional. When you push the body beyond its comfort zone in a controlled, respectful way, you expand the mind's understanding of possibility. The limits begin to dissolve, not because someone told you they don't exist, but because your own experience proves it. And through this practice, something else happens. You return to simplicity. You return to basics. Breath in, breath out, step, stretch, hold, release. There is no overthinking here. There is no overcomplication. Only presence, only effort, only awareness. And in that simplicity, the mind finally rests. A disciplined body also teaches humility. You realize how much work is required to maintain strength, flexibility, balance. You realize there is no shortcut, no hack, no magic solution, only consistent effort, day after day, moment after moment. And this understanding makes you more patient not only with yourself, but with others. You stop expecting instant results. You respect the process. You respect time. And this calm patience is another form of strength over the mind. As the body becomes stronger, the mind becomes quieter. As the breath becomes deeper, the thoughts become slower. As the muscles become more stable, the emotions become more stable. This is the natural harmony between the physical and the mental. They were never meant to be separate. One was meant to guide the other. And when the body finally stands in discipline, the mind recognizes that it can no longer run wild. It must align, it must focus, it must bow. And in that moment, something inside you becomes unbreakable. Most of what controls is not real. It feels powerful, it feels heavy. But when you look closely, it is built from ideas, memories, expectations, and emotions that are constantly changing. You think you are reacting to life, when in reality, you are reacting to the image your mind has created of life. You are responding to a projection. And until you see this clearly, you will continue to live inside the illusion, believing it is the only truth available to you. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold or distant or disconnected from the world. True detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is freedom from being controlled by feeling. It is the ability to feel deeply without being drowned. It is the ability to care without being chained. It is the ability to love without losing yourself in the process. It is clarity in the midst of emotion rather than suppression of emotion. The illusion begins with identity. The mind constantly builds a story of who you are, your name, your past, your successes, your failures, your roles, your labels. It says this is me and that is not me. But if you look carefully, you will see that this identity is always changing. You were not the same person 10 years ago. You won't be the same 10 years from now. The thoughts you have today are not the thoughts you had yesterday. The body you live in is not the same body you were born into. Everything about the you that you defend so fiercely is temporary. And yet this temporary collection of experiences is what the mind clings to as absolute truth. Once you see this, even slightly, something begins to loosen. You start to understand that the you that is offended, the you that is praised, the you that is rejected, the you that is admired is a construction, useful for functioning in the world, yes, but not your true essence. And when you detach from this false identity, you stop being ruled by the need for approval, the fear of judgment, the hunger for recognition. The world loses its power to define you. Emotions are another layer of illusion. Most people think their emotions are who they are. I am angry. I am sad. I am afraid. But these are temporary weather patterns passing through a much larger sky. They come and go, they shift and change depending on sleep, food, hormones, memories, interactions, and countless other factors. To believe they define you is to give your power away to something temporary. Detachment means you begin to say something different inside. Anger is present. Sadness is here. Fear is arising. And in that small shift of language, you create space. In that space, you become the observer, not the prisoner. You stop drowning inside the emotion and start watching it move. And when it is watched, it cannot control you in the same way. It can be experienced, honored, learned from, and then released. Most suffering is created by attachment. Attachment to outcomes, attachment to people, attachment to how things should be, attachment to what you think you deserve, attachment to what you are afraid of losing. You build an image in your mind, and then you try to force reality to match that image, and when it does not, you suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because your expectations are unreal. Detachment from illusion is the acceptance of reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It does not mean you do not strive, improve, or grow. It means your inner peace is no longer dependent on external conditions. You can move toward a goal without being destroyed if you do not reach it. You can love fully without being shattered if you are not loved in return. You can give your best without needing a guaranteed reward, because your power no longer comes from the outside. It comes from your alignment with truth. This kind of detachment is frightening for the ego. The ego survives on drama, on control, on attachment, on comparison. It wants to be special, superior, admired, chosen. And when you detach from illusion, the ego feels like it is dying. It will resist. It will tell you that you are becoming numb, that you are giving up, that you do not care anymore. But in reality, you are not dying. You are waking up. When you detach, you begin to see life more clearly. You see people not as enemies or saviors, but as human beings trapped in their own minds, just as you once were. Compassion becomes natural because you are no longer blinded by your own emotional storm. You are not as easily provoked. You are not as easily flattered. You are not as easily manipulated. You see through the games, including the ones your own mind tries to play. This does not make life less colorful. It makes it more real. You start to appreciate what is in front of you without the need to own it, keep it, or label it. A moment becomes just a moment. Beautiful because it is temporary. Meaningful because it is fleeting. And because you are not clinging, you are finally able to be fully present. Detachment from illusion also brings you closer to truth. You stop identifying with every thought and start listening to something deeper. A quiet knowing. A still presence. A sense of right and wrong that is not based on fear or reward. This is when your decisions change. Your actions change. Your life changes. Not because you are forcing change, but because you are no longer living in a lie. And what is the greatest illusion of all? The illusion that you are weak. The illusion that you are broken. The illusion that you are not enough. These are just thoughts, repeated so many times that they feel like facts. But when you sit in silence, when you observe without judgment, when you detach from the noise, you meet something else within you. Something steady. Something ancient. Something strong. Something that has been watching your entire life, untouched by success or failure, pleasure or pain. That is the real you. And the moment you realize that this presence exists and that it has always been there, the illusion shatters. You are no longer trying to become powerful. You are no longer trying to be stronger than your mind. You realize that you always were. You just finally stopped believing the lie.